Hi, I'm Reverend Stormy Shearberry, and I am an elder in the United Methodist Church, and I'm also a state police chaplain for the state of Indiana, and also a chaplain for our local fire department. What we're going to do today is talk about what to do if you find yourself in a situation where there is an active shooter or possible bomb threat. The first thing that you want to make sure you do, if you have any awareness of all that there's a problem, you hear a pop and you think that it might be a gunfire of some kind, and especially if you're in a public area like a mall or an airport or in a church building, the first thing you need to do is you need to hide. Get down and get down fast. After a while, listen a little bit longer. You're going to hear a lot of chaos if there's an active shooter or if there's a bomb threat. Your next step is you need to find a place to run to. There will be lots of people around you who are probably going to be upset and excited, and as you are trying to exit an area and find a way to get out, do not use your cell phone. Do not let anyone know who might be your enemy, who is close, where you are. Everything needs to be done very quietly, and one of the biggest things you need to remember to do is breathe. When you get in that situation, we are all tempted to hold our breath. And you can only do that for so long. And then when you've run out of the ability to do that, they're going to find you because they'll hear you because you're going to be gasping. So try to breathe and breathe really soft and really shallow breaths, not real deep breaths. Breathe very, very, very shallow. And if you have to, take 3 seconds to get that under control. That will also help focus your mind on what you're trying to do next. So as you're exiting, let's say that you're in an airport and you know those are gunshots that you're hearing, and you see people screaming and running in a certain direction, you run in the direction that they are running as well, as long as you don't hear any action. You might find people hiding in other places as you get into back corridors and things like that. Please encourage them to come with you. You may encounter someone who is so scared that they can't. This is a very, very difficult situation. But your choice at that point is to leave them behind and move on. Your best bet is to run and hide. You have to get out of the area as quickly as possible and try to get outside where you don't hear any noise anymore. That's when you can use your cell phone. That's when you start calling 911. The other thing that happens usually when you're like in an airport situation or a mall situation, you're usually not alone. You may have your family with you. I have 4 children, my 2 youngest daughters who I travel with the most. My youngest one is 19 and we travel on mission trips and we go through international airports, some that have recently been bombed. And my first instinct would be, she's going off and let's say she's gone to the bathroom and I'm over here waiting for our flight to take off, and then chaos hits and we know there's a problem. You do not go find your family. You absolutely do not go find them. You do not call them. You trust you will find each other eventually. The worst thing you can do is to try to backtrack. You will probably put your life and their life in great danger. Do not call them. Do not text them. You don't want any noise going off that might tip somebody off where they are, because my 19-year-old has been taught to hide. And if she's hiding underneath the cash register and all of a sudden her phone starts going off and making all of these cute little sounds that we all have on our phones, somebody's going to know she's there. And we don't want that. So you have to put trust in you will find them when it's time. And the safest thing that you can do is get yourself to safety. And you need to assume that somebody will help them get to safety. If I'm running down a corridor and I see 2 or 3 people who are hiding, and I'm pretty sure I've found a way out, I'm going to encourage those people to come with me. I'm going to assume somebody's doing that with my daughter and just leave it at that. And then when it's all over and the chaos is all ended, then you can be reunited. We had this very thing happen to us. It wasn't an active shooter and it wasn't a bombing. It was a tornado. We were at the 4-H fair. Our younger daughters at that time were 10 and 8. They had gone and asked permission to go over to another building that was quite a distance, probably about a half a mile from where we were, and all of a sudden we all went on lockdown. And all I could think of is, where are my kids? Where are my kids? And I wanted to leave to go find them. But then it occurred to me, I had 3 little kids with me who are 10 and 8, who I didn't know from anybody, Adam or Eve, but I was taking care of them. And so I calmed myself down and said, somebody's taking care of my children. We'll be okay. And so you just continue with that kind of attitude and that kind of behavior. The third thing you do is the thing that you want to try to avoid the most, but if there's no choice, you may have to fight. Hopefully, if you have to fight, and usually when you find yourself having to fight, is when the shooter has gone off and you're in a room where there's only one door to get out. And you know, if you go out that door, you're going to encounter them. Most shooters are going to try to come into that door. And so what you got to do is you got to look around the room and find what you can use. Chairs, anything that you can find. Look through cabinets. If you're in a kitchen, find a pot. Hopefully you can find an iron skillet. And you know, it seems kind of funny, but an iron skillet would come in real handy. And if there's 2 or 3 of you in there together, you've got to make a plan and you've got to be quiet. Now, when they enter in, the quickest thing you're trying to do is disarm them. So there's a way to stand behind. You have a plan of who's going to do what. And hopefully your plan follows through. But that's the last thing you want to have to do. But if you have to, try it. Do it. Don't just sit there. Don't talk to them. Don't try to plead with them. Assume the only thing you can do is to try to disarm them. That's the only option you have. 98% of people who hide and run come out of the situation alive. People who try to confront and reason tend not to come out of alive. And we have a saying in the state police that at the end of the day, we want everyone to go home. Even if it means you're going to prison. We want everyone to go home. So the goal of the people who are working with this is for everyone to stay alive. That is the goal. And that is your goal. So you've got to work towards those goals. Sometimes we have people in our lives who deal with crisis situations very well, and then we have those who just go nuts. Does anybody know anybody who there's a nosebleed and they're falling apart? They're going to be those people in that group. What you have to do at that point is usually assign someone. Leaders will pop up. People will pop up who will kind of be like, this is where we're going, this is what we're doing. And you can ask them, well, why? And say, well, I know this building and I know we'll be okay. Or they might say, well, I just have a feeling, let's just try it, it's worth trying. So you go ahead and try. But if you got somebody who's fallen apart, they can really make things a lot worse for the entire group. So you need to assign somebody to them that can help them get under control. And I mean get under control quickly. Even if you have to take your hands in their face and say, you are going to get us all killed if you do not calm down. Now look at me. Calm down and have them breathe with you, okay? Back and forth, back and forth. They'll usually calm down that way, hold their hand, keep a hold of them the whole time, and they will start to mimic your behavior. In this situation, we get what we call a mob mentality going on. So what 3 or 4 people are doing, everyone else is going to do. So if screaming is started and punching and, you know, well, they're it or they're it, that tends to have a ripple effect. You've got to check yourself and say, what was I supposed to do in this situation? So the steps are hide, run, and as the last resort, fight. When you're at the running stage and you feel like you're in a good area where you don't think there's anything going on, try to use the cell phone to call the authorities. That's the only phone call you make. Do not call your family again. Absolutely don't do it. If they're calling you, turn it off, turn off all the sound. Do not talk to them under any circumstances until the situation is what we call under control. And they say that the situation is cleared. Sometimes you'll find yourself, this happened to our daughter at Valparaiso. She was at the library typing away on her computer. A deputy sheriff walked in on the steps and said, everybody out now. Just yelled it. And what they didn't know was they had gotten a bomb threat in the library. So she turned around to go back to get her computer. And the sheriff said, no, go now. So she called me on the phone. She's a little bit odd in the way she shares things. So she says, Mom, I'm calling you because you're going to hear this on the TV and then you're going to be mad at me. But I'm out in the lawn at Valparaiso and there's a bomb threat in the library where I was just at. And I was like, yeah, you're right. I'd be mad about that. Me being with the state police, I was getting bulletins that they weren't getting. So the group, she had found a group and they were staying together and they were doing what they were supposed to. And so I was kind of coaching them and I was able to give them some hints because I had that tied in. But more than likely, even if I'm with you, we're not going to have that in an international airport. We're not going to have that kind of connection. We're not going to know how to call authorities or do any of those things. So if you have to hide and run for a long period of time and just stay in place, do just that. The other thing that I suggest is when you are going on an international flight, and the assumption is that everything's going to go along the way it's supposed to. If you're a diabetic or someone who needs medical care on a regular basis, hypoglycemic, have those things with you in your backpack. Have everything that you need. Don't think, oh, I'll get that in my bag when I get my luggage. It's the very thing that can just put you down when it didn't need to put you down. So you have all those things with you. All medications are with you in your bag. And I suggest that you pack a lot of snacks. Just so if you're in a situation for 8 or 9 hours, you have the ability to eat. You're already on high alert. Your brain's already firing. You've been through this crisis. You'll have periods where you'll calm down and then you'll rev up. Food will help keep you a little bit more even. So have those things with you whenever you travel. Just for purely as a snack, but if you're in that situation, you'll be so glad that you have that bottle of water, or you have, usually it's the snacks we can get through the airport. I don't know if you can get them through without the caps being undone or not. But make sure you have all medication and some food with you that you might need at all times in your backpack when you are flying, that you leave nothing in the suitcase of that nature. Leave your clothes there. Doesn't matter if you wear those for 3 days. It does matter if you don't have your insulin and you go into diabetic shock. So you have those things with you at all times. The other thing is, it's not your day to be a hero. Unless you are trained on how to bring down an active shooter. And I said, I'm a chaplain with the state police. And you know what I'm trained to do? Get people out of the way. That's what I'm trained to do, is get people out of the way. And that's exactly what I would do in that situation. If you're not trained for anything but that, that's all you need to do. Let the people who are trained handle it. Try not to get too caught up in things that you might be hearing. As you go and encounter people, they're going to say, what's going on? What have you heard? What have you heard? Try to be careful in not getting people excited, and just say, a lot of times if you're in that situation, what you ought to say is, I think we're going a safe way. Do you want to join us? And just keep people moving to safety and trying to get them out. The biggest thing you want to try to do if there's an active shooter in the building is get out of the building. That's what you want to be. You want to be out. And then you want to find a place once you're out where you're not open for target practice in the middle of a field. You want to find a dumpster or a series of dumpsters that you can literally climb inside of if you have to. Whatever you need to do to protect yourself until the authorities come through and you know it's for real. All clear, everyone is safe, and get everybody together. And then they'll get everybody together and do what they need to do from there. The steps that I've just outlined for you are on the internet. All you need to do is type in what to do if there's an active shooter, and there's a really good video there that shows people hiding, running, and fighting. And they shows them exactly what to do. It shows in the video someone not willing to go along. And they try to coax them and try to coax them and try to coax them, and they won't go, so finally they just leave them and they move on. That would be a very hard decision to make, but it might be the best decision you can make. You cannot stay behind for one person. You just can't. And if you can, if you're capable, pick them up and take them. You know, I can still see the vice president when 9/11 happened saying that the secret security came in, and all he remembers is his feet in the air and him going, where are we going? They just said, you're going, and he couldn't even walk himself there. They picked him up and took him to the bunker. You may have to do that with somebody else. And if you have to do that with somebody else, do it, because it can save your life and their life. Seconds do kind of matter. So it's very, very important that you follow those steps. The other thing that I recommend is, we're doing this video right now, but you need to practice it. Anybody who's played sports or plays music or does anything like public speaking, you know if you try to get up and do that without any practice, it's so-so. There's going to be some natural ability come in, but what a big difference when we practice, and what a difference that makes. That's why with me, with the state police, I have to practice certain things every year, and I have to go through certain things every year. We do the same thing with the fire department. So we practice those things. So what I encourage you to do is not necessarily get in your building and hide and run and fight. What I encourage you to do, though, is do it in your mind. Mm-hmm. And if you're getting ready to go on a trip, anything that's international especially, start 3 weeks before you leave. And when you're in the shower, whether it be at night or in the morning, go through the steps. This is what I would do. What am I going to do if somebody won't go with me? Already have it in your mind. I'm going to get up the strength to leave them behind if I can't get them to come on. I'm going to just say, okay, God, take care of them and move on. If you already have practiced that in your brain, it's a lot easier to do when it happens. It won't be an easy thing. Nothing's going to be easy in that situation, though. So you practice it every single day, and my recommendation is twice a day. Do it when you're in the shower, and if you take a shower at night, then do it when you wake up. If you take a shower in the morning, then before you go to bed at night, go through the steps. You know that there's a shooter or something's gone wrong. People are running, screaming, chaos, something's wrong. Practice yourself being separated from your family. Practice what that feels like to you and what that would be like. Practice packing stuff. Okay, I need to get all my meds. I need to get all my kids' meds or all of my spouse's meds. I need to make sure I have some snacks that are easy to go with. Practice those things and then practice the steps. And it's frightening, but still practice being outside and maybe being inside a dumpster and you know the shooter's out there walking back and forth. You got to practice how to be calm, and most of all, practice your breathing. Before, those of us who have children, we are taught how to breathe. And when in a crisis situation, like when we were in the tornado situation, that's the breathing I use to get my breathing under control. And there's that mob mentality. So if I'm here and I'm calm and I'm breathing slow and steady and you're talking in a calm voice, other people will catch on real quickly. And if you've got someone who's not catching on, go over and talk to them. You don't yell at them. You don't scream at them. You give them what you want from them. Calm, reasonable. And the biggest thing is they're just scared out of their mind. So if somehow you can make them feel safe, like, we're here together. We'll get through this together. So come on, breathe with me now. Biggest distracting thing you can do to a person is ask them to breathe with you. And when you do that, they calm down really, really fast. All right, that was kind of the real quick thing through. Anybody have any questions or about what we've talked about, or what would you want to know differently? What should you do?
Reverend, you talked a lot about how to help people when it's time to run, how to help them run. Would it be accurate to say that you try a sentence or two, a time or two, to get them to run, but then you move on?
There's a certain point when you can tell. The video that I referred you to, there's a video, if you go to the one that comes up first when you put in what to do with an active shooter, you'll see in there's a woman hiding underneath the desk. And the way the people know to move on is she holds onto the desk tighter. Instead of letting go of it, she holds onto it tighter. Look at their body language, look at what they're saying, look at what they're doing. If they'll let you jerk them along. But if they're fighting you for all they're worth, then you are taking desperate energy you need for other things later down the road. And you just have to let it go. It's very, very hard. Being separated from your family is also very, very difficult. And it's very difficult if they try to communicate to you and you not communicate back with them. But you absolutely cannot do that until you have an all clear. And you might be thinking, sometimes a question at this time comes up, well, what if the people who are doing the shooting are saying that it's all clear? And sometimes they'll do that to try to flush people out. But for the most part, the situation isn't calm enough where they can do that. People who will see them will be screaming, oh, there is somebody, and you'll hear gunshots going off. So if you want to be a little slow about coming out because you hear it's an all clear, then be slow about it. Make sure what you're hearing outside matches with what you think should be going on. It's not going to hurt you to be in that dumpster for another 5 minutes. It might just save your life. So just try to be as calm as possible and wait it out. It's going to be the longest wait of your life, I guarantee you. But you can wait it out. The kids to take you back to the college scene, there was no bomb in the library. A kid inside the building had called and said there was going to be a bomb, and they had traced it back. They had the kid in custody within 22 minutes, and they had the whole situation taken care of and dealt with that quickly, in spite of the fact that the way the deputy sheriff handled things was a way that I would not recommend, because he went in and started screaming at the kids. We are trained to go in. Sometimes I am the one that has to go in and tell people they need to move to safety, and we are trained to be as calm as possible, but you're firm. You don't ask, you tell. And that's another thing. If you've got somebody who won't go with you, you don't say, please go with us. You say, you must go with me. And then start taking them. Very short, commanding sentence. Be very aggressive about that they're going with you. You don't ask them, you don't plead, you tell them. And a lot of times they'll respond to that. Anybody else have any questions? Yeah, Dewey.
Do you have a suggestion for that time after you've escaped, say, the airport in another country, and you need to call the authorities? How do you know what to dial, or if my cell phone is even going to work in another country?
That's a real problem. For the most part, your cell phone is not going to work. At that point, it's very odd that you're going to be an American and not have anybody in that country around you, or that you won't come across someone in that country around you, and they're going to be just as afraid as you are. They may even think you're the problem. They may be afraid of you. But if you can buddy up with somebody from that country, and then they'll figure out what needs to happen at that point. These things always get called in eventually. It always gets called in. It may not be by you, but there are cameras in every airport. There are triggers in every airport and any kind of a public space that triggers that there's a problem. Just like with that library, that the whole staff of the library knew what was going on before the people who were using the library, the clients knew, because those systems are built in. So I don't think it's a real worry that the burden rests on you to get the authorities there.
Okay.
They're probably coming, and you'll probably hear them. Lots of sirens, those kind of things. Stay put. You absolutely do not move until you are assured it's an all clear. What if it's in another language that you don't know? Hopefully, there'll be somebody else there with you who speaks that language, and they'll tell you. And when it's an all clear, they're not going to be demanding, all clear, everybody get out now. They're going to be, it's fine, everything's okay. Can everybody please come out? We want to help you. Come on, please. They'll be very pleading, very nice, very calming. They'll cajole you, anything that they can do. And then once that is over, you need to go with them. First of all, they'll want statements. But more so than anything else, don't say, okay, well, that was awful. Well, I'll pray about that and that'll be fine. I think you ought to pray about it. I agree with that. You need to talk to somebody. You need to let somebody know what you went through. My spouse and I were in a plane that was crashing. And we didn't talk about that right away. We were with the bishop headed to Greece. And we were on the plane with people. There were 200 of us who we were going down, and it was going down no matter what. And we realized after the fact that we never really got to talk about that and process that. And so they finally got us together to do that. And there's just a big difference. So talk. Find a pastor, a chaplain. They'll bring people in to talk to you. Find your spouse, as long as they weren't involved. And just tell them what happened. And don't worry about worrying them. It's over now. So just get it out of your system. You need to tell the story. You need to tell how you felt and what it was like. And when you do that, it makes you more resolved and stronger to face if that would happen again, or to help somebody else through that situation. If they come to you and say, hey, this happened to me, will you listen? You can listen with a very empathetic ear. Excuse me, I'm cold.
It would be ideal, of course, if everybody you were traveling with, your family or your mission group or whoever it is, would watch this video together. But that's not going to happen all the time. So would you recommend either shortly before a trip or maybe shortly before you go into a public space in another country that you go over these techniques with your group that you're putting out here?
I've led groups to Nicaragua and to Detroit, Michigan. I had a group of 14 teenagers, and we were staying in downtown Detroit, which is about as unsettled as places in the Middle East can be. And yes, we went through this. And they had to go through it, and they had to be able to tell me what those steps were. And the other thing that I recommend any team use, and I don't care how old you are, we use what's called the buddy system. Dewey's my buddy. At all times, I'm supposed to know where Dewey is. That doesn't mean I go to the bathroom with Dewey, but when Dewey's going to the bathroom, I know that's where he is. And then if you get in a situation where you're not feeling quite so safe, things aren't going well. And like when we were in Turkey after a military coup, we stick together. We would not let anybody go off by themselves at that point, and we needed to stay together. So it's important, I believe, that whoever is leading a team to make sure that people are trained in this and they're told to think about it, because thinking about it gets you 10 steps ahead, because you'd really freeze, and you're going to freeze probably even though you know what to do. And what most people do is hide right where they are, and that can be a really big mistake. You hide first, you kind of have to assess what's going on, but eventually you need to go away, you need to get out. So I do recommend that whoever is in charge of a team, especially if you're traveling internationally or to a city that is well known for crime, like going to Chicago, taking people there, have a buddy system and talk about what you would do if something would happen. Like we always talk about, if somebody robs you, give it to them. I don't care what it is, give it up. And try to, resolve the situation the best you can. You're much more likely to deal with an active shooter or bombing than theft, straight head on in another country. And it is much more of a reality than it ever used to be.